Your blood pressure medication has been increased again, Dr. Chen said, frowning at her computer screen. But I never ordered that. I set the bottle down on the examination table. My hand wouldn't stay still. The label clearly showed my name, my dosage, my pharmacy. But something was wrong. Haliara, when did you start taking this new dose? Dr. Chen leaned forward, concern etched across her face. I couldn't answer immediately. The question opened a door I hadn't wanted to examine. For the past 6 months, my daughter-in-law Vivian had been managing my medications. She'd insisted on it after my stroke 2 years ago. She said I was forgetful, that I mixed things up, that she wanted to help. I'd believed her. The examination room suddenly felt too small. The walls seemed closer than they had moments before. I was 58 years old, a former accountant, a woman who'd managed her own life for decades. Yet somehow, I'd surrendered control of something as fundamental as my own health to a woman who'd married into my family just 7 years ago. I need to check something, I told Dr. Chen, standing up with purpose I didn't entirely feel. The drive home took 18 minutes. I counted them. 18 minutes to process what I'd just realized. 18 minutes to understand that the dizzy spells, the confusion, the constant exhaustion, none of it might be from my stroke recovery. None of it might be natural aging. All of it might have been deliberate. My son Marcus answered the door when I arrived. He worked from home as an architect, which meant he was usually in his office on the 2nd floor. He looked surprised to see me standing in the foyer at 2 p.m. on a Tuesday. Mom, is everything okay? He was already moving toward me, concern replacing surprise. Where's Vivian? I asked. She's at her yoga class. She'll be back around 4. Why? What's wrong? Marcus was studying my face now, the way he used to when he was a child and I'd come home upset. I couldn't tell him. Not yet. Not until I knew what I was dealing with. I need to see your bathroom, I said. The one in your bedroom. Marcus's expression shifted. It was subtle, just a tightening around the eyes. But I caught it. Mom, what is this about? Please, Marcus, just show me. He led me upstairs, and I could feel him watching me as I walked into their master bathroom. The medicine cabinet was above the sink. I opened it slowly, methodically, like I was opening a door to a room I might not want to enter. There were dozens of bottles. Dozens. My name was on most of them, but the dates were wrong. The dosages were wrong. Some medications I'd never heard of before. Some were duplicates of each other, different brands, but same active ingredients. Some were expired by over a year. My fingers reached for one bottle. Metoprolol, a beta blocker for blood pressure. The label said 100 milligrams, twice daily. But when I checked my own records at home that morning, my prescription was for 50 milligrams, once daily. Marcus, why is my medication doubled? My voice sounded strange to my own ears, distant, like it belonged to someone else. I don't know anything about that, he said quickly. Too quickly. Vivian handles all of that. She says you're not reliable with your own prescriptions. The words hit like a physical blow. Not reliable. As if I hadn't managed my own life for 58 years. As if I hadn't raised him alone after his father passed away when Marcus was 12. As if I hadn't worked full-time, paid for his college education, and maintained a household entirely on my own. I want to speak with Vivian, I said. She won't be home for another 2 hours. Then I'll wait. I sat in their living room. The afternoon light came through the windows in long rectangles, and I watched the dust particles dance through them while my mind raced. I thought about the past 6 months. I thought about Vivian's constant presence, her insistence on driving me to appointments, her habit of being in the room whenever I spoke with my doctor, her gentle suggestions that my memory was failing. My memory wasn't failing. I'd been poisoned. The realization was so stark, so absolute, that I had to stand up and walk to the kitchen. I needed water. I needed to move. I needed to do something other than sit with the growing certainty that my son's wife had been systematically giving me the wrong medications. But why? That was the question that kept circling back. Why would Vivian do this? What could she possibly gain from making me sick? The answer came to me as I stood at their kitchen sink, watching the water run over my hands. Money. It always came down to money. Marcus was my only child. I had a substantial estate, a house worth over $1 million, investments, retirement accounts, and I had no will. We'd talked about it 100 times over the years, but I'd never gotten around to it. I was healthy. I was young. There was always time, except I wasn't healthy, and time was running out. If I became incapacitated, truly incapacitated, not just forgetful, Marcus would become my legal guardian. He could make decisions about my care, my finances, my medical treatment. He could sell my house. He could access my accounts. He could do whatever he wanted, and Vivian would benefit from every single one of those decisions. The front door opened at 3:47 p.m. I knew the exact time because I looked at the clock on the microwave. Vivian walked in carrying a yoga mat and wearing athletic clothes. She looked surprised to see me, but she recovered quickly. She always recovered quickly. "Haliara, what a wonderful surprise. Marcus didn't mention you were coming." She set down her mat and came toward me with arms open, as if for an embrace. I stepped back. "I went to see Dr. Chen today," I said. Vivian's arms dropped. Her expression didn't change, but something shifted in her eyes. A calculation. A reassessment. "That's nice. How is she?" Vivian moved to the refrigerator and opened it, her back to me. A deliberate move. A way to avoid my gaze. "She was confused about my medication," I continued. "She said she never prescribed the dosage I've been taking. She said my blood pressure medication was doubled. She said my thyroid medication was increased twice. She said there were medications in my system that she'd never prescribed at all." Vivian closed the refrigerator. She turned to face me, and now her expression was carefully neutral. "You know how these things happen, Haliara. Pharmacies make mistakes. Doctors' offices mix up records. You were confused about what you were taking. Remember? You called me last month because you couldn't remember if you'd already taken your morning pills?" "I was confused because you were giving me the wrong pills," I said quietly. "That's a very serious accusation." Vivian's voice had changed. The warmth was gone. In its place was something cold, something that had been there all along, hidden beneath the smiles and the helpful suggestions and the gentle concern. "It's not an accusation. It's a fact. I checked the pharmacy records. I went back through 6 months of refills. Every single one shows a dosage that doesn't match my prescriptions. Every single one was picked up by you." Vivian walked past me into the living room. She sat down on the sofa with the kind of deliberate calm that suggested she'd been preparing for this conversation for months. Years, maybe. "I don't know what you think you've discovered," she said, "but I've been trying to help you. Your doctor agrees that your health has been unstable. Your memory has been failing. You've been confused and forgetful. I've been managing your medications to try to stabilize your condition. By giving me the wrong dosages. By adjusting your dosages based on how you were responding," Vivian corrected. "And it's working, isn't it? You've been more stable, less anxious, more compliant." The word hung in the air between us. Compliant. as if I were a child to be managed rather than an adult to be respected. "Where's Marcus?" I asked. "In his office. He doesn't need to be involved in this conversation." "He absolutely does. He's your husband. He's my son. He needs to know what you've been doing to me." Vivian stood up. She walked to the foot of the stairs and called up to Marcus. When he appeared a moment later, he looked confused and worried. "Mom and I were just having a discussion about her medications," Vivian said smoothly. "She seems to think I've been giving her the wrong dosages. I think she's confused about how pharmacy refills work." Marcus looked at me. I could see him trying to process the situation, trying to decide who to believe. And in that moment, I realized the terrible truth. He wanted to believe Vivian. He'd already decided to believe Vivian. The thought of his wife deliberately harming me was too uncomfortable, too complicated, too destructive to the life he'd built with her. "Mom, are you sure about this?" he asked gently, and the gentleness was worse than anger would have been. "I'm completely sure. I have the pharmacy records. I have my prescription records. I have Dr. Chen's statement that she never ordered these dosages. I'm sure, Marcus." "Pharmacies make mistakes all the time," Marcus said. He was already moving toward his wife's narrative, already constructing a version of events that didn't require him to confront her. "I'm sure there's a reasonable explanation." "The explanation is that your wife has been poisoning me," I said flatly. The words landed like stones in still water. Marcus's face went pale. Vivian's expression hardened into something that looked almost like contempt. "That's an ugly accusation," Vivian said quietly. "And it's not true. But I understand why you might be confused. Medication interactions can cause confusion, cognitive decline, paranoid thinking. I've been reading about it." "I'm not paranoid," I said. "I'm not confused, and I'm not staying here." I walked to the door. My hands felt steady now. My mind felt clear. The fog that had surrounded me for the past 6 months was lifting, and in its place was a terrible clarity. I'd been wrong to trust Vivian. I'd been wrong to give her control of my medications. I'd been wrong to believe that she had my best interests at heart, but I could fix that. I could fix all of it. The next morning, I called my lawyer. His name was Robert Castellano, and he'd been handling my legal affairs for 15 years. I told him what had happened. I told him about the medications. I told him about Dr. Chen's confusion. I told him about the pharmacy records. He listened without interrupting. When I finished, he was quiet for a long moment. "Haliara, what you're describing is medication tampering," he said finally. "It's a crime. It's elder abuse. We need to document this carefully, and we need to involve the authorities." "I want to do more than that," I said. "I want to protect myself. I want to make sure she can never do this again, and I want to make sure my estate is protected." "Then we need to do 3 things immediately. First, we need to file a report with Adult Protective Services. Second, we need to get a full medical evaluation to document the effects of the incorrect medications. Third, we need to update your will and establish legal safeguards." Over the next week, I did all 3 things. I met with Dr. Chen and gave her permission to provide detailed records to APS. I underwent comprehensive medical testing that showed elevated liver enzymes, abnormal kidney function, and several other markers consistent with medication toxicity. I updated my will to exclude Marcus as executor and to place my estate in a trust with specific protections against anyone trying to gain control of my assets. The investigation took 3 months. Adult Protective Services interviewed me multiple times. They interviewed Vivian. They interviewed Marcus. They reviewed the pharmacy records, the prescription records, the medical records. They interviewed Dr. Chen. And then, one afternoon in late September, I received a call from my caseworker, a woman named Jennifer Torres. "We've completed our investigation," she said. "We've found substantial evidence of medication tampering and elder abuse. We're recommending criminal charges be filed against Vivian Grant." My heart rate accelerated, but I kept my voice steady. "What happens now?" "That's up to the district attorney. But based on what we found, I believe they'll move forward with prosecution. In the meantime, we're recommending that you seek a protective order preventing her from contacting you or having access to your medications." I obtained the protective order 3 days later. Vivian was served with the papers at her home. The look on her face when she realized what was happening, that was something I would never forget. The shock, the anger, the realization that her plan had failed. But the protective order wasn't enough. I needed to protect myself more comprehensively. I changed all my passwords. I opened new bank accounts at a different financial institution. I hired a home health aide to come 3 times a week to help me with household tasks and to serve as a witness to any interactions with family members. I installed a security camera in my kitchen and living room. Marcus called me 3 weeks later. I almost didn't answer, but something made me pick up the phone. "Mom, I need to talk to you," he said. His voice sounded hollow, defeated. "I'm listening," I replied. "Vivian told me everything. She said she was adjusting your medications to help you. She said she was trying to make you more stable. I believed her. I thought she was helping you." "She was poisoning me, Marcus." I know that now, and I'm ashamed. I'm ashamed that I didn't believe you. I'm ashamed that I let her convince me you were confused and paranoid. I'm ashamed that I chose her over you." The words should have brought me comfort, but they didn't. They brought something more complicated. They brought sadness. They brought a recognition that my relationship with my son had fundamentally changed. That trust, once broken, doesn't simply repair itself. "What are you going to do?" I asked. "I've moved out. I'm staying at a hotel. I'm talking to a divorce attorney, and I'm going to testify against her if it comes to that. I'm going to tell the district attorney everything I know about her plans." After we hung up, I sat in my living room for a long time. The afternoon light was fading into evening. The house was quiet except for the sound of my own breathing. I thought about the past 6 months. I thought about how easily I'd surrendered control, how easily I'd been convinced that I couldn't trust my own mind, how easily I'd been isolated and weakened. But I'd also learned something in those 6 months. I'd learned that I was stronger than I thought. I'd learned that my instincts were worth trusting. I'd learned that I could fight back even when I was scared, even when I was confused, even when the people I loved most were working against me. The district attorney's office filed charges against Vivian in November. The charges included elder abuse, medication tampering, and fraud. Vivian pleaded guilty to 2 counts in exchange for reduced sentencing. She was sentenced to 2 years in prison, with an additional 3 years of probation. Marcus testified against her. It was difficult for him. I could see the pain in his face as he described how she'd manipulated him, how she'd convinced him that I was mentally declining when I was simply being poisoned. But he did it. He told the truth. The trial lasted 3 weeks. I attended every day. I sat in the courtroom and watched as the evidence was presented. The pharmacy records, the prescription records, the medical testimony, the testimony from Dr. Chen. The testimony from my home health aide, who'd noticed the discrepancies in my medications and had brought them to my attention, which had started this entire chain of events. When the verdict came down, guilty on all counts, I felt something shift inside me. Not relief, exactly. Not satisfaction, though there was an element of that. What I felt was a kind of closure, a recognition that justice, while imperfect, had been served. But the aftermath was complicated. Marcus and I slowly rebuilt our relationship, though it was never quite the same as it had been before. We had dinner together once a month. We talked on the phone every other week. But there was a wariness between us now, a recognition that he'd chosen to believe his wife over his mother, and that choice had consequences. I moved to a new house 6 months after Vivian's sentencing. I wanted a fresh start. I wanted to live in a place where I didn't feel the weight of what had happened. The new house was smaller than my old one, but it was mine. I'd chosen every detail. I'd decided on every room, and I'd installed security systems and cameras throughout, a precaution I knew I'd probably maintain for the rest of my life. I hired a new physician, a woman named Dr. Sarah Okafor, who specialized in geriatric medicine and elder abuse recovery. She helped me understand the long-term effects of the medication tampering. She helped me develop a medication regimen that I could manage safely on my own. She helped me rebuild my confidence in my own body and my own mind. I also joined a support group for elder abuse survivors. There were 6 of us who met every Tuesday evening in the basement of a community center. We shared our stories. We shared our fears. We shared our strategies for rebuilding trust and protecting ourselves. One woman in the group had been financially exploited by her grandson. Another had been physically neglected by her daughter-in-law. Another had been isolated from her family by a caregiver who'd convinced everyone she was mentally incompetent. We were all different ages, from different backgrounds, with different circumstances. But we all understood what it meant to be betrayed by someone you'd trusted. We all understood what it meant to have your reality questioned. We all understood what it meant to fight back. 2 years after Vivian's sentencing, I received a letter from her. She was writing from the prison where she was serving her sentence. She said she was sorry. She said she'd been selfish and cruel. She said she'd been in therapy and had come to understand the damage she'd caused. She said she hoped I could forgive her. I read the letter 3 times. Then I put it in a drawer and didn't think about it for several weeks. When I finally did think about it, I realized that forgiveness wasn't something I owed her. Forgiveness was something I owed myself. And I'd already given it to myself the moment I'd decided to trust my own mind over her narrative. I didn't write back to her. I didn't need to. Her apology was for her own conscience, not for my healing. My healing had already happened in small increments, day by day, as I learned to trust myself again. Today, I'm 61 years old. I manage my own medications with the help of a pill organizer and a smartphone app that reminds me when to take them. I see Dr. Okafor every 6 months for checkups. I attend my support group every Tuesday. I have dinner with Marcus once a month, and we're slowly building something that resembles the relationship we had before, though it's different now. More honest, perhaps. More aware of the ways that people can hurt each other, even when they love each other. I volunteer at a local senior center, helping older adults navigate healthcare decisions and medication management. I speak to groups about elder abuse and how to recognize the warning signs. I've become an advocate for older adults' rights, using my own experience to help others protect themselves. The medication tampering took something from me. It took my confidence in my own mind. It took my trust in my family. It took 6 months of my life when I was confused and sick and didn't understand why. But it also gave me something. It gave me clarity about who I was and what I was capable of. It gave me the courage to stand up for myself, even when no one else believed me. It gave me the strength to rebuild my life on my own terms. And that, I've come to understand, is worth more than all the trust I lost. If you're experiencing medication tampering or elder abuse, please reach out to Adult Protective Services or call the Elder Care Locator at 1-800-677-1116. Hit follow if this hit close to home.